I got my head done when I was young. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. When I feel heavy metal, and I'm pissed and I'm when I lie and I'm missing all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please let me shout.
All right. Welcome. Derek, you're on my left today. Instead of my right. Can you hear?
Different day, different side, different. I don't know. Every podcast is different, Coach. Either way, I'm here.
We got Coach Thomas Long with us. He's the Director of Athletic Performance at Moravian University, is right? Moravian University.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yep.
Don't downplay it, Coach. Don't downplay it.
Right. No. I thought at one point years ago maybe it was Moravian College, but Moravian University. Yes. So before he was there, I mean, he was at Villanova. He built up that program there for strength and conditioning standpoint, working with a lot of the Olympic sports there. Did a lot of great things with respect to data collection. He's got his CSES, his USAW, graduated from Temple University, exercise science. He's in his 7th year with Moravian, and has coached 22 landmark champion teams, 14 All-Americans, as just the kind of start of some of the things that he's done. So without further ado, welcome Coach Long.
Coach, thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Coach, give us a background from a coaching standpoint and in education standpoint, even athletic, what you played maybe and stuff like that, and how you kind of arrived at Moravian.
Yeah. So I started at Moravian in 2016, and prior to that, you nailed it on the head, Coach. I was at Villanova. But when I was at Temple University exercise science, like probably most young adults who graduate from high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do the rest of my life. All I knew was sports. I played pretty much every sport growing up, about till high school, and then I committed myself to football. And then graduating high school, I just kind of followed the crowd. Everyone said go to college, so I went to college, and I kind of stumbled upon exercise science. And once I found it, I'll tell you what, Coach, I was hooked. I really found a passion for learning when I got to Temple, and just kind of it all took off from there. But to graduate from Temple, I had to do an internship, which led me to Villanova. And then I was blessed to be offered a paid position at the end of that internship, and spent 1 year under the direction of Jacob Cox, who was the head strength and conditioning coach for the football program at the time. And I'll tell you what, I honestly, Coach, that's when a majority of my education really started, was actually getting into the field and seeing things live and being exposed to technologies that I didn't even know existed at the time. So that gave me a great platform to go off of. And then 2016, the director of athletic performance position opened up at Moravian, and threw my hat in the ring. And again, probably blessed is the key word you're going to hear throughout this podcast. I was very fortunate to get the position.
And now, since you've arrived at Moravian, because they've had a lot of really great success since you've been there. Talk about some of the things that you've emphasized and focused on in the development of a lot of your athletes, especially Division III level, which is different than being at Division I level of Villanova. Talk about kind of what some of the things you did there.
So that's a good question. My assistant Ty Schubert and I were actually talking about this the other day, about how our position at the Division III level, a lot of what we do for these kids and what they're going through, it's all voluntary. There's nothing holding them to come to training. There's no scholarship where you have to go to training or you're going to lose your scholarship. So we're dealing with athletes who genuinely love their sport. And for me, my biggest, I wouldn't say challenge in the beginning, was making sure that I was creating an environment where everybody wanted to come to training and they wanted to get better and they weren't being forced to go there. It was all intrinsically motivated. Like they wanted to go to the performance center to get a little bit better. So establishing a good culture with all of our sports teams. We have over 23 sports teams, over 550 student athletes. So that was one of my biggest objectives getting off the ground there, was making sure that we were creating a good environment for training. And then dealing with, I mean, honestly, Coach, we really don't do too much different than like training styles than pros and D1. I mean, I don't fit myself to one style of training. I think a majority of strength and conditioning coaches are like that. You're kind of working with what you have available to you and what the athlete's needs and what the sport's needs are. So it's kind of an ebb and flow with what we're trying to implement.
It's is there like more of a base end development at the Division III level versus like maybe when we were at Villanova, or is there more foundational elements where, or is it the same and you're really trying to just advance them within their skill set level?
No, we definitely have a foundation level. We have a foundation card for a majority of our freshmen as they come in. And we start with body weight movements and we progress them accordingly from there. Now, obviously, if an athlete comes in and they have weightlifting experience, they're going to progress way faster than someone who is completely new to the game here. But yeah, you nailed it on the head, Coach. We have a foundation level card. We call it a tier system. So we go up to 3 tiers of training: a foundation, a tier 2, and a tier 3 training style. Tier 3 meaning we're doing more like conjugate. We're on VBT units. Nice. And we're kind of just like getting a little bit more advanced from there.
Speed development. What's the focus there? Do you have any? Well, let's talk about that first. Speed development. What are some of the things you focus in from that standpoint with your athletes? Is there much more of an emphasis in speed and explosion versus overall power, strength development? Talk a little bit about that.
It's a little bit of both, Coach.
Okay.
I definitely want my athletes being strong, so we're going to lay a really good foundation with just key movement patterns first, whether it's front squats, overhead presses, RDLs, stability ball leg curls, Nordic hamstring curls, kind of just prepping their body and the muscular system for those high velocity movement patterns. But as far as sprints go, power and speed goes, sprints are our bread and butter. Every single team that we train is doing some type of sprinting pattern, whether we're focusing on max acceleration or max velocity. And we're definitely just fine tuning those characteristics as we go through. A couple of our teams are doing Olympic lifting. Our football team is obviously heavy on Olympic lifting. I think we only have 2 other teams that are doing it at the moment. Our volleyball program and women's soccer are doing snatches. But as far as all the other programs go, everyone is sprint oriented, plyometrics oriented, and med ball oriented.
Coach, how many sports do you work with total?
So I work primarily with the football, men's, women's basketball, tennis, and golf. And
wow.
Yeah.
Diverse.
Heavy workload. Yeah, very diverse. Yep.
And a lot of individual work for each team, I'm sure. And obviously, like most of our viewers know, like we talk football a lot, and we talk about, your big main sports are obviously at any university, any school, right? It's football, men's basketball, women's basketball, usually as you look at it as like your big 3, right? But then to have some of those other ones sprinkled in really needs to diversify what you do training wise as well. Coach, that's funny, right? Didn't we have, I'm almost positive that one of our other strength guys that we've had on worked with tennis as well. Was it Rhode Island? I think it was you got University of Rhode Island. I think it was a coach up there. I don't know. It just seems like football and all of a sudden like tennis is the other one that they throw in there for you. Yeah, absolutely.
I worked with the tennis program at Villanova. So honestly, that was the first team that I was assigned to really program and develop. I was an assistant for football, and then they were like, "Hey, man, you're taking tennis. go get them. And I'm like, oh, cool. All right. So, no, honestly, working with them is great. We have a very successful tennis program here. Our women's team is always fighting for the Landmark Conference Championship, and our guys are in second place right now for the Landmark. So
Nice.
they're very competitive and they're dedicated. So, but
no, I was just curious
I
as to how many varsity sports you had, you know. Nice. No, I was curious as to how many sports you had because, you know, look, everybody always wants to compare it to Division One, where each team basically has a strength coach on top of how many assistants, how many GAs, right? Whereas you are the guy for like majority of the sports within the building. So not only that diversification in how you workouts, but just time in general, or, you know, just male, female athletes, like all of those things encompass a lot more of your time. Explain kind of a little bit about that, coach, as to how you break that down a little bit.
Yeah, good question. So I don't change like our standards of operation across teams. So for us at the Division III level, again, like we don't have scholarships weighing over our heads here. So like my main mission as the director is to get all of our student athletes to their highest level of athletic readiness. And for me, I break that down into 5 categories. It's physical, psychological, physiological, technical, and tactical. Kind of stealing what I was taught at Temple University. My professors were very knowledgeable there. So kind of just reading right from the textbook. But I truly believe in those 5 pillars, and we take those characteristics and those pillars, and we start to develop them more and more as we kind of peel back the layers. But as far as like dealing with a football program and then going to train the tennis program, it's definitely 2 separate worlds. And the intensity factor has to be dialed back a little bit because you're dealing with athletes that, again, I tell them you don't have to love training. You just got to love your sport. And if you love your sport, you're going to learn to endure or sacrifice for the sake of training. And we really built a safe environment for those athletes to excel in. So the intensity factor is something that over the years I've definitely gotten better with, knowing that, okay, I don't need to be a football strength and conditioning coach when I'm in the room with tennis and golf athletes. It's more relax. Let's fine tune movement patterns. Let's build confidence. Let's build competency in what we're doing. But yeah, it's a good question, coach. It's definitely something that for me is constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's interesting because the different movements and the different mentalities of the different sports vary, right? I mean, intensity levels vary. What gets the most out of them varies. So it's probably fun because it keeps it challenging.
Oh, hell yeah.
First, yeah. You know, you're working with different sports as opposed to just doing. That's probably the benefit too of Division III. Of course, you're probably overworked because of that, but
just a little bit. But
just a little bit. Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When you have seen some of your, you know, like I said earlier, the you know, a ton of All-Americans there, ton of all-conference players. What have you seen in the evolution of those athletes? The difference between the ones that have gone on and become some of the better players at Moravian versus, you know, some of the others. I mean, is it purely talent? Is there work ethic? What about? Are they in the weight room more? What is the
It's a little bit of everything that you just said, Coach. They were already coming in with a tremendous foundation and strength and power, and their willingness to be coached and be exposed to different styles of training. A majority of our first team, all conference and all Americans, I'm here from 5 a.m. until 5 p.m. pretty much Monday through Friday. And I'll tell you what, we have kids that come in bright early morning. I see them in the afternoon working on their skill set down in the batting cages or doing wall ball drills, and then they're going to practice. And on top of that, they're hitting their classes. So they are truly dedicated to their craft, and we're blessed to have them at this level. I sometimes question, it's like, really, like you're here, like
right
with us at Moravian, like I feel like you should have been a PSAC player or maybe even beyond, but Some of these athletes are obviously student athletes, but we do have good academics here. So some of these athletes do make that sacrifice of like, okay, I know I could be a higher caliber, whether it's D1, D2, but having Moravian on my resume is going to probably put me in a better position after my collegiate career. So now, Coach, they are dedicated, hardworking, and talented. That's the three common denominators.
Yeah, that's something that makes a ton of sense, obviously. What is about Moravian? Moravian's been around. It's always kind of had a
sixth oldest university in America.
Yeah.
You were right. It was a college up until about 3 years ago when we officially became a university. So,
by the way, is the town that Moravian in? Is that where? What's the company that does the Peeps, the Easter?
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they
right?
are. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
There you go, Coach. That's a good way that you know him. Way to let that one out of the bag, Coach.
You know how I know it? Before I was in sports and I was in the tech field, we had a meeting with their company. So I drove out there and I saw, Moravian University's here. And down in the main area, that's where they have the Peeps, those marshmallow peep things. By the way, Derek, I know you're laughing inside at this, but it's pretty it's an incredible thing that they do there. All right, so anyway,
listen, they have to. They're a seasonal thing. They got to make all their money off of one
prime time coming up,
brother. That's it. Yeah, shit. That town's about to be busy. But that's right. Funny. Dave, you never see some of the shit.
You like how I have a lot of useless information.
Fuck you. This guy's a trivia night gem.
Good to know.
Trivia. But what is it about Moravian? So we I'm one of my good friends, Coach Nymphius. He's from head coach of Riverdale, proud Moravian alumni, and yes, he's probably watching this podcast right now. So but what is it about that attracts athletes there? It not just attracts them, but the university really retains them very well. What is it that it is about Moravian? Hey, they're retaining you. They got you on 7 years already.
Yeah, damn, Coach. Yeah, you probably blinked and never thought you would be there that long.
Seriously, I know. It was actually a little side story. I got the job at Moravian, and then within 1 year, I was sitting for an interview back at Villanova for the football position. And
usually how it works.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I told them during the interview process, I was like, hey, man, I hate jumping ship. I want to commit myself to a school for at least 4 or 5 years because I was young. I was only 26 years old when I got hired as a director of sports performance. And I really wanted to put my thoughts to the test here to see if, I could make a difference and if my philosophies are true and do I have to adjust. And but yeah, no, they've kept me here for a little while, but honestly, Coach, it's a small community, but it's a tight community. The amount of work our administrators put in to make sure that the students are getting the best experience, they bend over backwards. I've honestly never been to a school where I've seen so many support systems and resources and people that are just willing to go the extra mile for you. And they do a heck of a job of selling it. We have events going on here year round, whether it's just regular students or recruits, just junior days that we're bringing student athletes on campus for, just showing them our facilities. And that's another kind of good selling, just a good thing to have for us is our facilities. We have pretty nice facilities for a Division III school.
Had a couple players from the area recently visit and come back and say, Coach, man, their facilities were above a lot of other Division III programs that we've been to, and even comparable to some, higher levels. So it's definitely a selling point that's kind of getting out there more and more. Yes. 100%.
I mean, just from our training facility alone, I mean, we're blessed to have a student athlete only training facility, whereas a majority, no, I shouldn't say a majority, but a lot of Division III schools, you just have a fitness center and you're competing with the general population over squat practice. And that's, for me, that's not conducive for training. Like I just want the football team in there. I just want the basketball team in there. I want the golf team in there so that we can really peel back the layers on developing a championship caliber team. And when we got to yell a little bit, I don't want to look like a madman in front of a bunch of random people. So that definitely helps us out there.
Yeah, Coach, but with that beard walking around campus, they already know you're that guy. So like, it's totally fine, dude. Like, it's a dead giveaway. I think it's like strength coach 101. Got to have the beard, right? Yep, absolutely. Got to have the traps. Like, it's just all part of it. So don't worry about it. They already think you're crazy.
Glad I'm not the only one. Good to know.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, just to circle back, one more thing, Coach. One thing that they have just brought up is called our AIM program, and it stands for something. I'm not good with acronyms or whatnot, but basically, if you do this AIM program and you don't get a job within 6 months, Moravian will start to pay back part of your tuition, your loans, and also give you ability to go back to school for some type of certificate or certification. And for parents, like the older I get, the more I'm like, oh man, I got to sell to the parents because I mean, they're the ones that are writing the check at the end of the day. You know, that's an insurance to those parents. It's like, okay, like if my son or daughter struggles or doesn't get a job within 6 months here, that Moravian, if they complete this AIM program, Moravian has to. So there's a lot of assurance here that like, hey, like we're going to take care of your son and daughter. We're going to put them in a better position for long-term success. And I think that's the key factor here, setting these young adults up for the next 20, 30 years of their life, making sure that they got the tools to succeed. No,
I think that's an important thing. I mean, you know, that's why you go. That's why you go to, you know, when you go to Division III, that's what you have to be thinking about. I mean, you got to set yourself up with the getting the tools that'll help you succeed in life, and that's what Moravian. You know, if you go there, that's really the main priority. What does a program look like for? I mean, obviously you're doing different sports, so that each one's a little bit different. Like, but what are some of the core tenements that you want the athletes to apply? And you can pick a sport. I mean, if you want to do football, that's great. If you want to do another sport, it's great. But like, what is like the typical off-season development look like for them?
Yeah. Let's go with football because I think everyone's going to relate to football. And I'm a firm believer in if you can coach football, you can take those concepts and you can start to apply them to a bunch of different teams. So for me, I'm kind of more block-oriented periodization. So we're going to go through different phases here. So for us, our off-season obviously leads off with trying to put up on as much lean body mass as possible. I'm looking to make good body composition changes during this time frame before we get the spring ball. So I get about 6 to 7 weeks, depending on the academic schedule, to really get these guys in good condition as far as body composition goes. While we're doing that, I mean, obviously we're still touching on power. We're still paving the way, and more so planting seeds for the next phase, layering in Olympic lifting for them heavy, but nothing like we do like 60, 70% load for our Olympic lifts during that phase. And we're just hammering the basics during that. But
Olympic lifts, Coach, you're going bench, back squat, deadlift, cleans.
Yep.
Okay.
Deadlifts. I've kind of shied away from deadlifts the past couple years, been getting more into block pulls, just to kind of switch up the variation. I didn't see a good transfer for our deadlifts to Olympic lifting. So I was just making sure that we weren't blowing anybody's lower backs out in the pursuit of trying to
numbers.
Olympic lift. Yeah.
What about like hex bar deadlifts? Do you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll
Dave, I got to make that differentiation now. You know what I mean? Like, because when I'm thinking deadlifts, I'm thinking hex bar all day. No more straight bar deadlifts. Those I kind of think that those days are kind of maybe it's some old schooler guys, but the hex bar is now like starting to win a lot more.
Yeah.
As we look at it, especially for like me at a high school level, right? We're big Tony Holler people, so that's kind of how, we're more and all that kind of stuff. Like that's really kind of what we're following now. And like you said, also like that pursuit of a number is sometimes so detrimental, especially guys that still haven't, fully hit puberty yet. And we're talking about like, oh, coach, I gotta like stop aiming for a number, dude. Like, I don't even care if there's weight on this bar right now. Like, I want you to do it right and make sure that we set you up for the future. So like you said, with percentages, we do the same thing. It's 70, 75%, maybe we'll get to an 85% at the end of it. It's like, how many reps can you get with this weight to come up with your max? And that's how we'll figure it out. I'm not one rep maxing or doing any of that kind of stuff. Like there's too many things that can go wrong. Yep. Too many things that can go wrong. Sorry, go ahead, coach, continue.
No, that's a great point. I can't remember the last time we did a 1 RM squat.
Right.
Deadlift over. I mean, it's just we're either going to do 3 at the very heaviest, or we're probably around 5 RMs, and that just gives us a better baseline. Plus, I mean, we're blessed. We have laser systems, we got VBT units, we got jump mats. So I'm collecting metrics on a number of different things anyway. So, and I mean, look, I think we can all agree there's 1,000 ways to get the same result here. So for me, I got to look at what's the team, because every year it's a different team every single year, different personalities, different dynamics. You lose leaders, you gain leaders, and you got to train the leaders. You got to make sure kids are being good teammates. So it's a big juggling act. But anyway, back to the conversation. So we're going to gain some muscle mass in the beginning, but for me, it's all about chest. I'm setting myself up for the next phase and laying and planting seeds. So like, again, we're teaching in the beginning for Olympic lifting, and then we're hammering back squat, front squat, RDLs, really big on RDLs.
Yeah.
I know a lot of coaches are just better bang for your buck. I feel like much safer, but at the same time, like if your goal is to become a more proficient Olympic lifter, like, look, man, you got to be able to front squat. You got to be able to RDL. You got to have that range of motion. You got to have that strength. Otherwise, like, how are you going to get out of the hole in the clean? So we're going to always be hammering those. We may rotate different tempos. We may do, more eccentric focus, or we might do pauses at the bottom with a lot of stuff just to get them uncomfortable. But that gives me more time to yell coaching cues at them. So like if we're doing 4-second eccentrics, it gives me more time to reinforce coaching cues while I'm behind them. Elbows up, big air brace, knees out, knees out, knees out. So again, just playing chess here, making sure that we're setting them up for the next move. Right now, our guys are on their last week of spring ball. So we're week 5 of spring ball right now. And I'm a firm believer we can still make gains during spring ball. It just needs to be modified. Like obviously volume is cut down. We're keeping intensity high. We're making sure we're recovering. We're only going 3 days a week weightlifting right now, as opposed to 4 in the beginning 6-week phase. 4 weight room days and then 2 turf days during the first 6 weeks. But right now we're just going through.
And not to interrupt you again, coach, but like, just for our viewers and things like that, like they don't when they hear spring ball, they think Division I spring ball, full pads, we're going at it, and then we're playing a game at the end. Division III spring ball, not so much, I believe it's still shorts and a t-shirt, right? And it's
helmets and shoulder pads. We're allowed.
There you go. So look, we're progressing, okay? Because when I was there, not to date myself, but it was the first year we were allowed to use a freaking ball. Up until then, we used a towel, right? So at this point, and look, we've talked to a bunch of guys that obviously, like, everybody looks at spring ball as a benefit, but it is not your full padded banging around, 5 weeks of high intensity, and then you're finishing with a spring game. So it is a little different Division III wise, which allows you to actually continue your workout, and like you said, can still get gains without having to be worried about,
Right.
hey, I got a game here or a full practice. We're going an inter-squad scrimmage on Saturday, and I'm trying to win my job, all based off of those types of things. So it's definitely a big point.
Yep. So I mean, it's we just modify a couple things. We're still hammering down. Percentages start to rise a little bit with our Olympic lifting because I got to make sure, we're rapidly approaching the time frame when these kids scare the shit out of me the most is when they go summer mode and they leave us and we don't see them for May, June, and July. And it's just like, okay, fingers crossed that you're doing the work here. So,
right.
We're, again, for me, theme word right now is chess. We're being strategic. We're setting ourselves up for summer training mode, making sure they understand the type of intensities that we're going to be exposing them to. And starting to mix in more sprint work and field work and conditioning. We have a sled conditioning test that we do when we report back for training camp. So it's broken down to big, skilled, and skilled. So they're all doing some different type of sled work. So
rather than a 300-yard shuttle or a 110. You guys do a sled conditioning test.
Yep.
Can you explain that a little bit? That's
absolutely.
I've never heard that. So maybe I'm late to the party.
No, so like when we were at Villanova, we were kind of toying with the same concept and look, you got to get the correct amount of yardage, right? You got to make sure that you're slowly ramping up the yardage per week. To make sure that they're ready for the demands of college football. But it's not all running. Eventually, you're going to be engaging another human being, and you're going to have to move that human being. So our sled conditioning test is just by position. So it's big skills and skills. Our big guys, forgive me, I forget the amount of pounds that we have on the sled, but it's simulating a play drive. Okay, so 10 series play drive. And our O-line, D-line men, they have to engage their sled. They have to first they have to lie down on their bellies, get up off the ground as fast as possible, engage the sled, push it 10 yards in 5 seconds, and then they rest for 25, 30 seconds to simulate a play drive. And they got to complete 10 of them. So get off the ground, engage the sled, push it 5 yards, rest 20, 25 seconds. Big skilled and skilled, a little less weight, but they're going to travel a little bit more distance with the sled, but there's also going to be a running component to it. So
it's a one-man sled?
Yeah, so battle. I call them battle axes. O-line, D-linemen, they're going to engage the sled for 5 yards. They got to do that 10 times. Big skilled, they're going to push the sled 10 yards, and then they got to do a 10-yard out and back sprint. So disengage from the sled, either peel to the left or to the right and do a 10-yard shuttle down and back, and then rest for 30 seconds and then repeat that 9 more times.
Woo!
So, I mean, look, for me, like, if they can complete that, I know that their aerobic capacity is on point and we got the strength to at least get that 10-play drive going. Our skilled guys are going to push a sled for 5 yards. They're going to disengage from the sled and do a 15-yard shuttle down and back, and then get back on the sled and push it 5 more yards. So simulates getting off the block, running a route, and then engaging with somebody down the field again.
Right.
For us, this will be year 3 of doing it. And each year we got more and more guys that are passing the test. So, yeah.
Dave, what was yours at UConn? Did you have a conditioning test?
300. Yeah.
Did you have one, Dave?
Yeah. So we at first we had the 1040 test. We had to get to 90. We had to be I can't remember what it was, 90%, I think, or of your fastest time, and then Holtz moved us to the 300 shuttle test.
Which was that, 50s?
That's 60-yard down, back, back down. I think it was. Wait, let me think. It was. No, it was. Yeah, it was 650s. You're right. It was 650s. Right, you're back on. Yeah.
Sacred Heart, we had 16 110s.
Oh,
Dude,
I'm not sure. It was,
you want to talk about people dying, coach? You want to
Yeah.
talk about people dying? There were
Yeah.
guys that were like, freshmen incoming. Like, look, they tell you, look, here's what we're going to do. Unless you're, and back in, 2004, that, there were trainers, but there wasn't trainers. And you could go
Right,
out there
yeah,
and,
that's
I
right.
did my 110s. I worked for it, and look, you had to make that time with your 45 seconds in between. And there were a lot of guys that were like, college football is not for me. And that was like, hey, we showed up on Saturday, Sunday morning, conditioning test, bright and early, and we're out there going. And there were a lot of dudes that were they were reconsidering life, let alone, football or college. It was a killer. And then look, if you didn't make it, you had to show up at 5 a.m. and do extra conditioning for practice. And then until you can, they would give you like a couple days and then again, a couple days again. And I mean, there were dudes that it was like camp was ended and they were still trying to pass their 110s. And it was like, hey, this is really what we're going to hold you to. But I was never I'm like, how does this,
I'm not huge on the testing part.
Me neither. And then when I transferred back to Montclair State, we didn't do any testing. We just showed up and played because, and like Dave knows this about, I am a very firm believer that in the best practice mimics gameplay in whatever way, shape, or form you can get that to, because football is different like that. You're practicing way more than you actually play. So the closest you can get to playing is what I feel like you should be. That's where you get the most out of your players. And you got to figure out a way to do that with practice. Same thing with conditioning tests, man. That's why even with my high school guys, when we're doing an exercise in the weight room, it's, hey, we're doing this because when we're out there with pads on, this is what it is. Oh, okay, coach. And then they're more conducive to be like, all right, coach, now I get why we're doing this shit, right? They buy in, right? Okay, because this is going to help me get off a guy. This is going to help me, accelerate out of my stance or run through somebody on a tackle, right? You just have to do that with them. You line up in shorts and a t-shirt and say, hey, we're doing 110s for time. Guys are like, this ain't track.
What are we doing here? Yeah.
Right. Well, coach, this ain't track. I didn't sign up for track. I'm like, well,
I think there's
sign up for football.
I forget there's some NFL coach who they used to do a mile run test, and one of their running backs failed the test, and the coach was like, if it's ever 4th and a mile, we won't give them the ball. It's like, when are you ever going to have to sprint 50 yards uninterrupted?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I say. Same thing. Even, 40s are one thing. We know it's always going to be a thing. But at the end of the day, how many guys are running 40s, right? How many times did you see a bench on the 50-yard line with 225 on it and you got to rep it in the middle of a game, right? That used to always be my argument. Hey, man, I'm sorry I can't rep this for what you want me to.
I mean, you're about to go into the toughest period as a football player, and you want to go into that under a state of fatigue already?
Already. On day one of camp.
When do you do your conditioning test with those kids? When is that?
So I think compliance wise, we report, and then we have to have a compliance day, and then it's usually day 3 we get our guys going as soon as possible.
Do you ever have a concern that sets them back fatigue wise for the rest of camp? And
especially if we're going Tony Holler's
maybe possibly injuries and stuff.
Coach, that's always on my mind, and that's the one thing I'm looking for. But the thing for me, and we kind of set in some fail safes here, if they don't, because they're being timed, it's a timed evolution. So if they don't meet the time, they're done. So if they're on rep 5 of this sled conditioning test,
and they don't hit it,
they don't make the time, you're done
later. It's not like, hey, you're going to get it on the next one, buddy. No, dude, this ain't how this is working.
That's where the wheels can come off the bus, is if you keep allowing that athlete to continue when they're obviously already failing. It's like, dude, 1, we don't have time. We got things we got to do. And 2, your safety is the number 1 concern. If you don't make the time, you're done, man. And guess what? You showed us that you're not ready. You didn't follow the summer training packet that we provided to you that outlined everything you had to do to be ready for this moment in time.
Right.
So they're probably going to do some extra conditioning at the end of practice. So
right.
That's how we kind of make sure that we're not, putting them in a bad position. But no, Coach, I totally that is always on my mind, because it's like we just worked our asses off for the past 8-9 months for this moment in time right here. I'll be damned if a sled is the thing that sets aside our number one running back. Like that can't happen.
And I also think, Coach, that's something else that, like you said, is a giant concern when you're at the Division III level. Is, again, you started this off with that. Like, there's nothing holding these kids here. So majority of them, especially a school like Moravian, where people go to and live there, they leave for summer. This isn't Division I where you're just into your summer semester and you're there with all of your strength coaches. You're there with the other guys on your team, and you're still in your workout groups that you have where all of spring, all of winter. Now you're going home, and football is like number 3 or 4. You're probably working a job. You're probably working out in Planet Fitness with other dudes that are in there. Like, how come you're not doing curls today, bro? Like, hang on. You want me to take the selfie for you or someone else, dude? Like, no, man, I'm trying to follow this packet because I got to go out and do it. And also, like, do I have access to a sled to work and push and do those things and mimic it? Or, 5 of my buddies are like, dude, what are we doing? We're going to the party. And you're like, dude, I gotta get my work in here. So on the other side, it also is like, hey, these guys now have to be extra dialed in. And okay, when you come back and you do that, now I know you're bought in because you did this on your own time and put, that little bit of extra effort. It's kind of like, that saying that's always like, it's what you do when no one is watching, right? Like that type of thing. And there's no way to really gauge it, right? Like, hey, dude, send me a Zoom of you working out or some shit, right? Send me a video of you doing this.
They can BS that. That's,
come on, dude. These kids are savvy. Christ, they can freaking, chat GBT, anything they want. Like, they're smarter than us at this point. It's really difficult. It's something that I think people overlook that side of it. That's where the Division III athletes play for the love of the game. They sure as hell don't play for NIL money or scholarship money. That's where you kind of differentiate that a little bit. But it is something that's really hard, especially if, like, you're expecting this guy to be your guy. Now, all of a sudden, he comes in, he's not in shape, he's not ready to go, sets everybody back, the entire team.
Yep.
Puts the coaches in a shit mood right from the jump. You're like, hell, they're already pissed because the wife is not going to see him for freaking God knows how long, and they got 4 kids, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, it's really difficult. Definitely.
I'll give credit to our head football coach. So ironically, our head football coach is Jeff Long, same last name. No coincidence or whatever, just a coincidence. But we started doing mandatory take-home binders. So our guys leave, they'll get issued a take-home binder, and that binder has to be returned to us the first day of training camp, filled in, and then we test them. So there's that accountability factor. And we tell them this all the time, especially like our recruits coming in. It's pretty good sales pitch, but like it's teaching them and planting that seed about the accountability. Like, hey, man, like that 3-month time frame, that May, June, July for a college football player, that is when your training matters the most. And how would you feel if you did all the workouts and you sacrificed and you did the packet, you filled it in, you turned it in? How's it going to make you feel if you find out that 20 of your other brothers didn't do it? Like, do you want to play college football with that guy?
Right.
And a majority of them are like, heck no, I don't want to play college football with that guy. And so I mean, we're getting to a point now, believe it or not, over the past 3 years with this new football staff that we're actually having way better return numbers. Like, our guys are returning in way better condition. So there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I mean, obviously, ultimately, if it translates into victories, that's what you're looking for, right?
Correct. Yeah.
From a coach standpoint, so that's always the key. As far as when do you get any athletes that transfer in there? Is that something that happens, and how do you get them on the same page if you do have transfers that come in?
Yeah. With the transfer portal the past 2 years, we've been scooping up a lot of like graduate transfers, like kids that are to our program for our graduate programs that may have 1 or 2 years left. And they have been, like, honestly, impact players for us. Like, I can, and not just for football, like across all of our sports here, like these kids that we're picking up that are transferring from whether it's D2 down, like they're impact players for us. And I just, when they get here, I have an honest conversation with them. It's like, I love that you're here with us, but there's a certain way we're going to go about doing things. And I need you to be a team guy or a team girl and buy into our concepts. And we'll obviously bend over backwards to help you, accommodate you in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, team objectives are team objectives. And we're not going to deviate from, how you did things at a different school. We're not going to change how we operate.
No doubt about it. And that's interesting because they are impact players. And they're probably used to a certain way of doing things, and getting them, on the same page. That's always the hardest thing, the integration of it all. But finally, so like, where do you see really the industry that you're in going as far as development of college athletes? Like, what do you see as some of the things that are become the most important influences in developing athletes?
Definitely what we started our conversation with, way more speed and sprint oriented.
Yep.
I think the old way of thinking that Olympic lifting was the only way to get athletes to be powerful is slowly on its way down. I mean, there are obviously benefits to Olympic lifting, but honestly, I think it hinges more on the coach. If that coach is able to teach and implement said Olympic movement patterns. But I'm seeing a really good trend that is showing way more speed oriented. Like, you got to do sprints, you got to do max velocity, you got to do max acceleration, and not just linear, like curve sprints, change of direction, different starting positions. Like, unless you're a track athlete, you know what I mean? Like, what if you're lying on your back and you got to get up and sprint? So, I mean, just implementing different positions that these kids may be exposed to.
Right.
And believe it or not, like field games, I'm seeing way more, which is really cool because, I mean, now you're killing two birds, one stone. The kids are having fun and you're getting everything you need as a professional. But like, field games and just different scenarios and just different stimulus. And I think that's a trend that you're going to see maybe replace like change of direction in general. If you're incorporating different competitive games into the equation, you're checking a lot of boxes there. So definitely more turf and field work oriented, or court work, depending on the surface, depending on the sport. But for me, I think the weight room is always going to be the weight room. Like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I think there's a lot of intelligent people out there that have already figured out how this is supposed to be ran and how it's supposed to work. And it's our job as the professional to implement the right thing with the right group at the right time. But definitely, I'm seeing definitely trends for more sprints, acceleration, top end velocity, and games. Like field games.
You almost have to trick them into training, right? In a way, right? It's kind of what it is. I mean, Dave, we've done it for how long with our younger kids, hey, we want them to run, make it a relay, right? And then at the end of the day, I think competition trumps everything because, these guys want to go back to the locker room and one group's going to win, one group is not, right? Or, Tony Holler's record, rank, publish. Like, nobody wants to be at the bottom of a list, right? So no matter what, post it, let them look at it, at the older levels where now you're a healthy level of competition, I think, like I said, can almost trick them into training. Also, this is the why generation. Coach, why are we doing this? So you need to directly link what you're doing with something that's going to benefit them individually, even though it's a team sport, individually, for what's going to make them better, what's going to help them improve, and why they're doing it. Otherwise, Coach, I'm not doing this just to do something. right?
Correct.
So I think that's why you're seeing that bit of an uptick, in that type of training when it's more situational or sport specific, as close to as you can get to a game or a full-blown competition like scenario.
Well, there's no doubt about it. That's a big thing, is that you got to get them to a scenario where it's game like and competition like, and that's where you get the most out of them. I think the games portion of it, like the old days of like literally tag, like and being able to chase and avoid getting tagged, and I mean, that was change of direction. That was explosion. That was speed, right? But you don't see them going like as kids doing that as much. But like,
right,
man, let me tell you something. You go and take some 10-year-olds and have them do flag tag. Yo,
Cool.
you could have they'll be doing that for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Because they're competing, and you tell them somebody wins and somebody loses, and there's an out, and then they don't want to be the one. So, but I think those things, the gamification of everything that you want to get accomplished, as much as it's not always possible because there's certain skill sets you got to work on. But as much that you can do it, I think,
right.
You're right. Like, it's not even, it's like, I don't even know if it's tricking as much as it is. You're just like, they're just out there playing. And
right.
when they're out there playing,
they're not aware of it, right, Dave? The awareness is on the game rather than, hey, we're working this to work this, right? Because to them, that's work. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a game. This is fun. And ultimately, if you end or they know something like that is coming somewhere along the lines, they're probably going to be more conducive to either, paying attention or doing something else that they don't want to do that you have to do to get done, because they know like a reward basically is going to be somewhat like that. That's how I view it or look at it. And Dave works with his younger, his son, who's like, 10 years old, 9 years old. Like, they're right in that age group right there where it has to be fun. I mean, when we're not playing our 7-on-7 games, we look on the sideline, they're playing tag or they're chasing each other around doing something, like figure it out, like, what the
they're like, oh, there's a game we got to go play now. Like we want to play. We want to play the games we want to play.
Right.
So, but it's but yeah, there's a balance of it, and there's no doubt about it. Like, I think that's even in older athletes, college athletes, the more practices is like a game, like Derek said, the more that they enjoy it. Like scenarios, right? Scenarios, like, here's a scenario, it's 3rd and 8. We're gonna do 5 of these. Whoever wins is X, right? And so 5, whoever gets the 3 first is the winner, whether it's defense or offense, and those kind of things. Even in training, I think make a huge difference. It does. It takes more guys like you, younger guys that are creative, right? That are thinking, of different ways to get the most out of your guys. Whereas, like, you get, I would say you get like older coaches. They're definitely much more along the lines of like, we got to get this done, because their assumption from the days when they have to adapt, obviously, as they get older, but there are days from the time kids were young, they played. So those kind of things was already done by the time they came to them, right? Yep. So now they can work on the things they need to. Now it's almost flipped. It's like they're training as a young age. As you get them as they're older, the more you can gamify it, the more you're getting out of them. It's like flipped almost, you know what I mean? So it's like, whereas like in the older days, it was like, all right, we have fun as kids. And then as we get older, it's like a pyramid. We get older, we get more serious as to it. It's kind of flipped. It's like now they're training as they're younger. We're trying to make it more fun as they get older.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It really, it's an interesting, like, kind of flip on it. And it challenges you guys a lot more. I'm sure it's challenging because you got to create scenarios and things like that. Whereas before, guys could be like, okay, hey, we're in get after it mode, and this is how it is, and it's a grind. The grind has to be more fun.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, really, really interesting stuff. It's interesting to hear your insights on how things are going to be going forward. And, obviously speed is at a premium, everything you do.
Sprint work, Dave. Like
yeah.
You're
no
only
doubt.
going to run fast if you sprint. You got to do it. You got to do it.
Nothing can replicate it.
Yep.
Nope. And it's the ultimate, like, fountain of youth, they say, right? Like Tony said it. I know I've referenced him a bunch, but on his most recent podcast, he's like, if you don't sprint, like, that's it. Most people after the age of, I think, 28, you don't think guys never sprint again.
I think it was 30. Some stats scared the hell out of me, and a certain percentage. I want to say it was like 90%. 90% of people over the age of 30 can't sprint.
Never.
And I'm just
never do it again, right?
Yeah.
Like, never sprint for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Scary.
I'm sprinting from now on.
Yes.
So once a week, my assistant and I are getting some lasers out, and we're sprinting. So
there you go, Coach. I mean, we just had Brian Kula on, and he's like, look, I'm whatever age.
I saw that. That was a good podcast.
He's like, I still get after it really, really hard. Appreciate that, Coach. We get a lot of those guys, look, they all want to talk. They all want to, like, get out there and just let it fly when they have an opinion on something or whatever. It's a great community that's very it's like they're crazy.
Yeah, if you're not ready for it, you're gonna get hurt.
Like
yeah.
Well, and I think that's what
stuff. The central CNS stuff is. I mean, obviously there hasn't been a ton of studies yet on the pure science of it. Some of it's still an art form, I guess. And so we don't. But yeah, I think that over time, as we start to get more data on it's going to obviously only help you in what you do, right? And what things really do affect the CNS and really help you run faster, be more explosive, and what of it is, which part of it is really truly is voodoo. You know what I mean? Like you're just thinking it's helping you, like placebo effect. Right. So I think that's going to become much more of a thing, because I think once the science, and that might not come out for another 10 years, 5 to 10 years before you start getting real data on it. But I think, but I think it's gonna, as you start to get older in your career, like you're gonna be like, hey, we got this data, like this stuff really helps you, like this, and that's gonna be really interesting, because I'm sure with like AI and all the stuff, the stuff that you're doing, collecting data and all these different technologies that will come out, like you're going to be able to eventually like, okay, this is working. This is not working, right. which is what's so hard about the industry, right? Like a lot of it is anecdotal, right? Like it worked for this guy, but for some reason it didn't work exactly as well for this guy. And you're trying to constantly take as much data as you can get in your world anecdotally and figure out, okay, like what is helping guys more in general, like you said before about the strength and conditioning. Like we know that bench develops a certain amount of explosiveness in this, and we know that back squats develop a certain amount of power here, and hex bar, there's some studies out about like correlation to speed, like strength there to how fast people are able to get, but there's just not enough of it yet. Like it's crazy because it's been around so long, and you start to get data on it, and then you realize like some of the data is fool's gold, and then it's
different for everybody. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it is the CNS system, and everyone's primed differently, and the rate of force development is different through the body for certain individuals based on biomechanics. I mean, the list can go on. And it's just but I think it's going to take some time to collect all that information. And you're right, Coach. Like with AI and everything, you just plug things in and figure out what the best approach is, go implement it, and track results. And if it's working, awesome. If not, you got to tweak something. So
and I think my wife works for Quest Diagnostics, which obviously does the all the testing and stuff. And it's interesting because years ago they were with, they might still be sponsors of the Giants there, but they were they do all the Giants, blood work data and stuff like that. But I think the few times they tried to roll it out to the masses, like athletically, and there wasn't the ability to get the pay for the demand for the pay for the blood work to start to track these things. So that stuff is out there. Like the Giants are probably utilizing it as much as they can. Not that it's helping them that much, but they're probably they're utilizing they're utilizing it, and they're starting to get some of those biomarkers and those kind of things. But I think eventually, like that part too, like as you start to understand, like your DNA can kind of do this, and your DNA can do this,
right. Yep.
And this. There is again, goes back to my useless facts here thing, but there was a horse. I was a big horse racing guy. I think it was Charismatic was the name of the horse, but it won the Triple Crown. But anyway, the horse was a claiming horse. Okay. And they had given up on it, and it wins this claiming race. And one of these, big time trainers, buys it. It's like, maybe there's something there. Well, the bottom line was the horse was, like a lazy worker. Okay. Had a lot of explosion and speed, but was a lazy worker, and it was slightly overweight for what it should be, but it was, and so he got it to a point where it was at the optimal weight for who he was, and put him into certain training methodologies where he was in positions that was advantageous to him. And it was like the psychology and of this horse, and he was able, and the horse ends up going on and being like probably one of the greatest investments of all time. Probably paid $25,000 for him,
right.
And wins.
Right.
I don't know if he won the Triple Crown or won 2 to 3, but obviously made a boatload of money. Right, became one of these great horses, and I always find that story interesting because how many times do you have a horse is different in the sense that like they can't talk back to you, so you have to coerce them in other ways. They can't tell you no, I'm not doing it. But with athletes, right, like you're not able to figure out exactly what that guy could do, and he just never gets there. You know what I mean? Like you're like, that guy could have got. I thought he could have got there, but we never got him there, and it's so frustrating. But I think eventually, you hopefully biomarkers and CNS and all, be able to test and be able to get those things where you can figure out that, you know what I mean, where you can, because human beings do talk and they can make a decision whether they don't want to do it or not. You know what I mean? Right. Whereas a horse, you're gonna put him in a scenario that eventually he might be able to get there because you're just gonna keep putting him in advantageous scenarios, right? So it's really interesting. I mean, the movie Seabiscuit kind of talks about the same thing almost, right? Where that horse was a struggling horse that ends up becoming a great horse. But I think that it's amazing that in our era we have all this data, but we still can't
get the feedback right. Yeah, so, like you gotta go through a 6 week.
Guys still don't want to trust it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still not a perfect science. It's not a perfect science yet. Nope. You know what I mean? Like it's there's so many other things along with it. There's a feel that strength coaches like yourself have. Like, okay, I'm getting this guy to the right place. And this one's getting to the right place, and this one's getting to the right place, and this guy over here, we can't get him there. Like, what do we got to do to get him there? And it's very interesting. I think that's what makes the field so fascinating.
Never-ending field of study.
That's right.
Correct.
It's a never-ending field of study.
It's a field. It's a never-ending field of study. Like you're constantly looking and studying what your guys are doing every single day.
And if you're not,
you're going to get passed and you're going to get fired. Yep.
We don't want that, Coach Love. We don't want that. The good thing is you have the same last name as the head coach, and I don't care what people say. It's just like my first name is David. When I meet someone else with the name David, I always kind of like them.
Yeah, you hit it off right away.
That's it.
Hey, Coach,
thank you so much, buddy.
Great having you on.
Yeah, guys, this was a blast. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Take care, Coach. We'll talk.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
See you later.
All right. That was a ton of fun. Coach did a great job. Really a great job. Yeah, really, really great. It's
Especially guys that have to work, do a lot with less. I mean, I don't want to say less, right? Because but
they're
it's
pretty
just,
good.
it's a
Yeah, they're
lot.
always pretty good. Yeah, yep.
But it's a lot, man. Like, you're wearing a lot of different hats. He doesn't have a staff that's 5 guys deep and guys that care, you know what I mean? And, he's got some of those things he's got to figure out with athletes going away for summer and not coming back. And, he's got mandates too. Like that head coach, whether his own guys don't work in the summer or not, he's going to look at the strength coach and be like, buddy, like, coach, I sent home the pack. Like, I get it. He's got to implement those mentalities when he has those guys that it's not as fearsome. They're already programmed when they go away from him for those weeks in the summer that we're going to get it done because he's demanded a standard and a level of accountability. So it's a lot, but good for him, man. Like that's a lot of cool stuff that, I took away from that a lot.
No doubt about it. Really, I think his test is interesting. Like, I think he's on to something.
Ooh.
I think he's got to keep tweaking that.
Yeah,
But I think he's on to something. I think he's on this. Like, I was trying to think, like, what is too much in that test? There's a few things I think might be too much, but I think that, like, I like that he's onto a path where it's like, hey, this test. I mean, he's trying to figure out a test that's more realistic to what it is in football.
That's one. And he's got the overarching, like, look, I got to develop something that doesn't fatigue them from the jump that we're already working behind the 8 ball to go. Okay, here it is up top. How can I do that? All right, well, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this with ultimately that in mind of how do I keep them at the top and not kill them right away from the jump. You know what I mean? So I think he's onto something there and just keep tweaking that thing and seeing, just publish and figure it out. And somebody else might have a help. Like maybe somebody else has a tweak or maybe somebody's already doing it. Like that's what's great about this community. Everybody I think is willing to help each other. Nobody's keeping secrets. You know what I mean?
No, I think they do a good job of sharing more and more. They almost need someone like that's collecting data while they're doing their stuff. Like that's the hardest thing about the industry. Like,
of course,
the data is actually there. It's just that they're not all. They don't have a collector at every location. If they were all collecting it and then sharing it,
and at the end of the day, that's not what they do. They're you know what I mean? Like they need a
scientist behind them. Like you don't need like a scientist behind there to be like, like literally like a cop guy who has a degree in quantitative. Yeah, like a professor. Who could go and study all these things and take the data and make sense out of the data.
You're like, what is this guy doing here? Oh, he's on the football payroll. Like, why? He's a sport, like he's a scientist. Like he's a numbers guy. He's a this, he's a that, he's a data collector. Why is he part of it? Well,
I mean, I think the big universities, Division One,
sure.
they're all. I bet you they're.
But that's what I'm saying. Working with, you know what I mean? Like he's getting a lot. Working with less help.
He's going to have to rely. They're all the Division 3 level. They're eventually going to have to rely and hope that like Division 1 guys do collect a lot of that stuff, so they can pass it down to them, and they can say, okay, this is like a better way to doing it.
I think one of the benefits of a Division 3 level or those smaller universities is that the alignment, the vertical alignment, from the top down, right? Like they're all in line with it, and the communication is, because you don't have to go through this person to get to this person to get to this person. It's, hey, here's what it is, here's the conversation, let's sit down, let's talk about it, where everybody knows what's going on, everybody is all in for all that kind of good stuff. Like that's important. That's what those smaller schools have that some of the other ones don't. It's awesome. All right, we're back Thursday.
Okay, cool. We have who do we have Thursday? Do you know?
Coach, I don't want to butcher his name. Coach Prokopjovic from Rochester University.
Oh, yeah, cool, perfect. Football coach, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, till Thursday.
Sounds good.